Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today on supplier screening. I encourage you to open up your screens and get your PowerPoints up. I'm going to be switching the screen shortly to Gerard. He's going to go through his presentation. So if everyone can just bring that up now. I'm your host, Haley. I'm a senior account executive here at OMX. I work primarily on large defense, aerospace, infrastructure, energy, and mining projects. I help buyers drive social and economic impact through procurement. In that respect, I speak to a lot of suppliers about their key capabilities and how they lend themselves to large procurements. So that's my background, and that's why I'm here hosting today alongside Gerard. A couple housekeeping items before we get started. We will be accepting questions throughout the webinar, so don't hesitate to write in. I will pass them along and ask them as they come in, and we're hoping to get some discussion going and not just, a one-way presentation. So again, if anything pops into your head, there is a question tool there made available with the webinar. Go ahead and ask anything you want. I know that Gerard is open to anything that comes at him, and we'll also do a follow-up after if there's anything that he couldn't get to. Secondly, this is going to be recorded for sharing. I will make the link available to everybody in an email afterwards, so you can share it with your colleagues. I'll also have it up on the OMX website, so you can share that link. So, a little on Gerard. He came out of the corporate office for Northrop Grumman's procurement team. So he does have some experience in supply chain and supply chain success. I'll let him dive into that a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter now, Gerard, if you're ready.
Terrific. Thank you.
Great.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. This is Gerard Smith. What I want to do is I want to go through a deck today and give you a little background about supplier screening and what it actually means and why it's important. My background is, as Haley said, I came out of Northrop Grumman. Actually, I was trying to centralize indirect spend at the corporate office. So I was writing all the contracts for office supplies and office furniture. I set up Northrop's travel program, et cetera. So I'm very familiar with the aerospace arena. And this program that we created, the service we created, is trying to solve an issue in terms of managing risk in terms of the suppliers. So 20 years ago, we used to collect the certificates of insurance and put it in the procurement file. We would run a Dun & Bradstreet report, and as long as it came up somewhat positive, we would put it in the file, and it's fine. And we collect the W-9s, et cetera. But no one in procurement, especially the buyers and senior buyers, knew exactly what they were supposed to be looking for in terms of the COI, et cetera. So there's always gaps, because when you don't have insurance protection from your suppliers protecting the parts or the products they're providing your company, there's a liability that you're taking on. So the questions that you should be asking is really, where do you currently obtain a supplier's financial information? What source are you using? Is it reliable? How do you verify and manage your suppliers' evidence of insurance globally, not just in the United States, but around the globe? And do you check the U.S. government's OFAC list prior to doing business with a supplier? Because that's a requirement under the Patriot Act. How do you know a supplier has current diversity status? Is anyone actually checking on all of that? So those are the type of things we're going to be talking about today. As Haley said, feel free to interrupt at any point and type in any questions, and I'll be glad to answer them as we go. There's really three parts I'd like to go through today. The first one is going through a PowerPoint presentation, which you should be able to see on your screen at this point, to give you a little background about GRMS, but also what is supplier screening and why is it important. This next step is I want to show you what our SaaS model looks like. In other words, how does the actual output, what does it look like, and what's the results look like? And there's really two different forms that we're currently under. We have a SaaS, or standalone platform, which is our internal platform. And then we've integrated with a number of companies, including OMX. So the benefit there is that you can actually see the results posted on the OMX platform, so you don't have to dial in or log into two different platforms. All the information on your suppliers are located in one place. So today we're going to be showing you the SaaS, but it looks exactly the same pretty much in the integrated model, which is our integration with OMX. And then the third thing I'd like to show you today is what can actually be included in a supplier screening program, just to get you thinking about what are important areas that you might want to consider including. And with all of that said, you'll be supplied a copy of the deck And I'll also give you a website, a hidden website page that you can go back and look at later on. That'll give you additional information. So let's start with a little background information about who exactly GRMS is. We have well over 200 clients, well over 300,000 suppliers currently in the database from various different industries. Obviously, we have a variety of different clients around the globe, whether it be retailers or manufacturers, etc. But what's the issue we're actually trying to solve? Well, currently more than 80% of companies conduct background checks on their full-time employees, but less than 20% do any type of due diligence on their suppliers. So for many companies, knowing your suppliers and managing compliance are now top corporate objectives. It's becoming more and more of a priority. So GRMS came as a result of an evolution in the supplier screening arena. As I said, 20 years ago, you could end up getting a Dun & Bradstreet report, putting it in the file, and then that would take care of supposedly the financials. But the problem is there's some limitations in that because it's primarily software companies providing data feeds, which there's limitations. The next evolution of supplier screening came from service companies that might manage a certificate of insurance, but that's really all they did, or conflict minerals certificates or those type of things. That evolved into more of a hybrid intelligence aggregation service, which is what GRMS was created. We looked at the industry and realized rather than writing contracts with various different companies, why not go to a single source that can manage all of the different components of suppliers and then be able to aggregate the information and produce the results quickly. And the next evolution we've now arrived at in this year is the ability to do continuous and real-time monitoring of suppliers, both in terms of their data, meaning their financial stability, et cetera, but also documents, such as the certificate of insurance. So in our experience, a world-class supplier screening program includes these 5 components, and I'll explain what they represent, because these are things you need to look at and determine, are we doing this internally, or do we need to outsource this in some capacity, and if so, to whom? So at the top there, the idea of being able to screen suppliers based on unique requirements. In other words, it's not a one-size-fits-all. You can screen suppliers based on geography, depending on what country they're in, maybe based on risk, maybe based on the amount of money or spend you're doing with them, maybe direct versus indirect. There has to be different types of screening packages for different types of suppliers because it should not be a one-size-fits-all. The next one is adjudicating all data returns for false positives. Recently, we got contacted by a Fortune 100 company that had 80,000 suppliers. And in this case, they had asked Dun & Bradstreet to actually check the OFAC list to make sure that none of their 80,000 suppliers were on the list. And D&B simply, as a software company, they basically just pinged the list and came back to the company and said, you have 7,000 potential, keyword potential, matches. The reason that happened is D&B and other companies that are software companies are data feeds, and they're not able to adjudicate. They're not able to verify. They simply ping the list and come back and hand you the results. But the problem with the OFAC list is now you have a hot potato, because legally now you have to do something about those 7,000 inquiries, which is why the company contacted us, because they had no idea how to manage that process. So again, the idea would be is if there is a positive, what you're getting on a data return, you have to adjudicate or verify that that is indeed the right company, because the last thing you want to do is exclude a supplier from your supply chain because you think that they're on the OFAC list, but it turns out it's not their company, it's another company. The third area there is validating all documents collected. What that means is that there has to be an ability to put human eyes on the documents. In most platforms, whether it be a procure to pay or whether it be an ERP system or whatever else, if it asks the supplier to upload, let's say, a certificate of insurance or a W-9 or W-8 or something along those lines, maybe it's a safety document, a code of ethics, or whatever it might be. In most cases, when you upload it in the platform, there's no human intervention. So you literally could upload a blank page, say the certificate of insurance is there, and it's actually not. But because no one's looking at it, no one ever notices it until there's a problem. So in this case, you have to have a service, in other words, looking at each of the documents and verifying that the information is indeed correct, that all the insurance coverages are there, et cetera. And so that's part of what this service has to represent. The fourth one is this ability to provide consistent, measurable compliance standards. The easiest example in that area would be diversity. If you are working with diverse companies, you want to verify that the company truly is diverse versus taking credit that they are or not. In many companies, when you actually check on it, they have to withdraw their claim because they've never actually certified as a diverse company, or they simply self-certified, which most large companies won't accept. And then the fifth area there is third-party verify all the supplier information and do it, more importantly, in real time. The best example there would be, again, Dun & Bradstreet. D&B is a source that's been used for many years. The problem is it's primarily self-reported information from the supplier. So it's basically me asking you, do you have good credit? You say yes, then I report it as yes. But the problem there is that they don't refresh the data except for about once a year. So literally you could be getting a D&B report that the last update was maybe 11 months ago, and yet you're making a business decision on a supplier based on financials from 11 months ago. So the idea would be everything has to be, again, third-party verified in terms of the supplier information. And more importantly, it has to be done in real time so there's no lag. So if you're making a business decision, it is current information. So with that said then, what really is GRMS? Who are we and what do we do? Well, GRMS is a compliance management service that's powered by technology. We're not a technology trying to provide compliance services like the ERP or P2P platforms. We have a different business model. Since we're a service, first we adjudicate all data false positives before we put in the final report. With like a document like a W-9, the IRS requires that it's the current version, that it's signed, that it's dated, that it's all totally complete. So we make sure that that is completed before we accept it. In the case of certificates of insurance, we verify the additional insured language, and then we also collect the right endorsements. A good example would be if you have a supplier that's working on your IT system, you want to make sure that cyber is part of that coverage. So again, you have to look at every certificate of insurance and make sure the additional insured language is correct and that the coverages are correct. That's very important. So we're different than Dun & Bradstreet and other subscription-based companies, which really primarily collect self-reported information. We use multiple global data sources to verify a supplier's information. And then more importantly, we access the information in real time. Then we grade the results based on your company's unique requirements. So the way the idea would be is to set up criteria. Did that particular supplier meet the criteria that you established as a minimum criteria, yes or no? Then you make the business decision whether you want to continue to do business with them or not. In addition, if a supplier fails the criteria, which candidly most of them do on the first go around, our goal is to assist the supplier to pass the screen. It doesn't help our clients or us for us to fail suppliers. So we work with them wherever we can to help them to get into compliance with whatever the client's requirements are. So a good example would be, and this definitely applies to aerospace, in our experience, we find that over 90% of the certificates of insurance are found to be failing when we implement a program. And that means every company we've ever implemented around the globe. So over 90% of the COIs that you're currently working with in terms of your supplier base, over 90% would fail if someone were to look at it and determine if the coverages are correct, et cetera. So as a result, half our help desk are employees from the insurance industry to help suppliers or their agents to get into compliance with clients' requirements. The idea would be that if they don't understand the requirements or they have not completely fulfilled what the requirements are, they can contact our help desk versus having to find somebody in your particular company as far as how to answer questions about the coverages and what's actually required. So I want to show you what a package can include. Again, this is just something for you to think about. This represents what GRMS does, but again, as far as your company goes, if you do it internally, these are things that are important. And GRMS is really the only company that can provide customizable screening packages in over 120 countries. So it includes the financial stability, the COI management, health and safety requirements, on and on and on. But I wanted to give you an idea of what could be included in the package, just to give you something to think about. First, so this is an enterprise-wide package. This is U.S.-centric. I'll show you an international one in just a minute, but this gives you, again, something to think about. Now, through a proprietary process, where that green bullet says global watch list, through a proprietary process, we search over 1,200 international government watch lists, including the US OFAC list, as part of our standard screening program. Many times companies are not even aware of how many different governmental watch lists. And the last thing you want to do is do business with any company on any governmental watch list, especially in your industry. And so there's over 1,200 international watch lists that we've identified around the globe, and we can actually manage all those on a daily basis. And we do continuous monitoring of those. So if a name pops up somewhere on the globe, we actually push a flag into the OMX platform to say, hey, you need to look at this particular supplier because their name has shown up in a particular watch list somewhere around the globe. The financial review is interesting because we have a direct data feed, a global data feed from Experian, which provides us financial information about both private and public companies around the globe. And so what that provides us the ability to do is be able to look at their more of a credit perspective in terms of are you paying your bills type perspective versus self-reported information. So not only can we provide the financial information in terms of at the moment when you're thinking about writing a contract, but we can even provide you a predictive score. Are they getting into financial trouble? Many companies, because they're not lagging or not paying their bills, this is again a red flag. You want to look at that before you issue a PO or write a contract with a company. And again, this is another area we do continuous monitoring in. So if there's a change in their financial status, again, we would push the results in the OMX platform, flagging it again. So you need to look at this particular supplier because they seem to be getting into financial trouble. Because oftentimes companies call us after something happens. In the case of a contractor, I received a call from in San Diego. It was a general contractor. He had issued a check for an electrical company to do a build out of this residential area. He had cut a check, I think, for $650,000 to the supplier. And then 48 hours later, the company filed bankruptcy and kept the money and didn't do the project. And the reason that happened is obviously they just decided they were going to keep the money, and this particular general contractor had no ability to have the visibility whether they were in financial trouble or not. So that's part of the issue we're trying to solve here. When it comes to the certificate of insurance, we talked about how important it is when you collect the COI and you're actually verifying all the coverages, which again, coming out of Northrop, I know buyers and senior buyers for the most part don't know what the coverages require, what specific additional language is required. But equally important, even if you get past the first hurdle where you get all the information correct and the coverages are correct, then the question is the supplier paying the premium? Are they canceling the insurance? Are they trying to reduce the amount below the minimums that you require, et cetera? So we actually manage the COI on a continuous basis. As soon as we're contacted of any material change, meaning they didn't pay the premium or they try and reduce the amounts or whatever the case may be, we actually contact the supplier and our client at the same time to say that the supplier has to fix that issue because they're no longer in compliance with the client's requirements. So again, this is a continuous daily monitoring of all the COIs around the globe. W-9s, W-8s, we talked about. It's an IRS requirement that you have current version. So you can't just have a contract with a supplier and just roll it over with an extension without verifying that that W-9 is indeed the W-9. And many times companies are asking for TIN matching. In other words, does the tax ID number match what's in the IRS database? We can provide that also. That's just another area. But the minimum requirement would be to ensure that you have the current W-9 is completely filled out. And then we talked about the diversity status verification. We have access to the world's largest database of diverse companies. We first check if the company's listed on that database. If it is not, we actually ask them to provide us a copy of their certificate from the issuing agency, and we're actually going to contact the issuing agency to verify that it's current and it's real, because we don't want to be in a situation where you're taking credit for diverse companies where no one's bothered to check. So again, these are 5 components of a package, a U.S. package or enterprise-wide package that is called Supplier Shield. The real-time results are produced in 1 to 3 business days, and the results are then pushed into the OMX platform so that you can actually see the results. Is there an issue with your supplier? And if there is an issue, it identifies what it is. In case of, let's say, insurance, they have $1 million E&O, they're supposed to have $5 million. So it's very specific what the issue is for you then to look at and determine if it makes sense. So once the basic package is set up, then what happens is most clients add enhancements to address specific areas of risk. So you can see legal, regulatory, reputational. 20 years ago, we didn't have to deal with a lot of these regulations that you now have to deal with. And as a result, some of them require paperwork, some require verification, et cetera. So you might be interested in conflict minerals or REACH or RAWHAS, maybe California Transparency Act, maybe cyber. there's a variety of different things, and the beauty is clients can mix and match based on what their particular requirements are. So they can say, this is what we want for particular suppliers, let's say internationally, and we have a different package domestically. So with all of that said, then, that's kind of a background to get everyone thinking about what could be included in a screening program. So Haley, do we have any questions so far before I change gears?
Nothing's come in so far, but if anybody wants to ask any questions, now is the time. But you can go ahead and switch then. If anything pours in, then I'll go ahead and interrupt you, Gerard. But for everybody that's on,
okay.
If you do have anything you want to ask about these packages, now would be a great time.
Okay. All right. And then, and if you have questions after, don't worry. You'll have both Haley's and my contact information. So feel free to contact either one of us and we'll be glad to answer any questions. But let's change gears now. Let me show you, what does the actual portal look like? So what would you actually see? Now, again, this is the SaaS or the standalone. We, as I said, have integrated with OMX so that the same results can be posted there. But once a supplier is screened, their current compliance status appears in our web-based portal, in this case, because it's the SaaS model. The portal's secure, can be accessed by as many users as you'd like for no additional cost. Same profile for OMX. It's going to have the same information as you do in today's world, but it's going to have more robust information about your individual suppliers. So again, on our portal, this would be the home page, which allows you to track the progress of the program using these 7 icons. So the first one's called In Process, which provides a list of the suppliers currently enrolled and then are being screened. Once the screening is completed, the supplier results is listed under one of the next 4 icons. So it'll either be pass, alert, fail, or other based on the final grade. Then the results icon provides a single list of all the suppliers that have been screened. So you can see in a very quick snapshot, and I'll show you what that looks like, so that you can see exactly who's been screened and what the status is of each one of them. And then since we're an ongoing compliance management service, we rescreen the suppliers each year to continue, to make sure they continue to meet your requirements. So if a supplier doesn't re-enroll in the program by their expiration date, they're listed as expired until they do. So in this case, 11 companies haven't gone through, so we simply put them in the expired column. Now, the next screenshot I want to show you is what we term the detailed view for the supplier. And this again would be on either portal. It includes the supplier company name, a main contact information, all the online documents, and most importantly, what we call the supplier compliance dashboard. Now, the dashboard is this area called search types. We use the vernacular. Every one of these are searches: a certificate of insurance, business locator, diversity, etc. And so it'll list and show you in color each one of them. So the dashboard shows the compliance status of each of the services, searches rather, performed. So as you can see in this example, the certificate of insurance, the COI, is non-compliant. The diversity status verification is expired. There's an alert for the Experian financial stability score, and a client exemption has been given for the bankruptcies, liens, and judgments. Now, the reason we do that is you may have a sole source where you say, well, we know this company filed bankruptcy in this case, or they've been bankrupt, but they're a sole source, so we want to continue doing business with them. So you can literally override the system and say, okay, they pass because we know about the bankruptcy, but it's irrelevant. We still want to use them. So you can actually override the system. So details of each of the grades are included in the final results, which is provided to both you and the supplier. So the supplier actually gets a copy of the final results so they know what we found out about their company. And then another important note is that the supplier can work with GRMS at no charge to try and resolve any non-compliant issues. Because remember, our goal is to get everybody into compliance. Now, this one's listed as non-compliant, and it's identify what those particular issues are for this particular company. And part of the benefit here is, again, we're providing enough information that's specific. They're deficient in insurance coverages or whatever the case may be. Now, the final screenshot from the system is the vendor compliance report. And the report provides a summary of the compliance status of all the suppliers in the system. So each grade can be clicked on, which will take the user directly to the search results. So if you click on an alert or fail or whatever, it'll actually go to that part of the report for that particular supplier just so you can drill down more information. Now, again, this is on a standalone basis. If you're on the OMX platform, you can actually see this information. You don't need to do anything more. But if it's on a standalone basis, by using the green download export file on the bottom of the report, the entire report can be downloaded in a CSV format, which can either be further analyzed or uploaded in any other system that you might have with your ERP system or whatever you want. So the clients find this useful because you can kind of grab it all in one bucket, if you will, and upload it in whatever platform you want. So let's talk about the cost of the screening program. The cost of the screening package is normally paid by the suppliers, who pay $199 for Supplier Shield, or if it's outside the United States, it's called Global Shield. And the package I showed you earlier with the 5 different circles, that's Supplier Shield, so that would be $199. And it's an easy, inexpensive way then to outsource the management of the COIs and all the rest of this. Really, it comes down to the package pricing really comes down to 2 factors: the number of data points we're managing and the number of documents we're collecting and managing. And once we determine that, that's what actually drives the price. But a lot of our clients use a Supplier Shield because it's robust enough. But if you have specific documents you want collected, whether it be a code of ethics or whatever, we can blend that as part of the program. Now, since the price is inexpensive, we get minimal pushback ever on the cost of the screening. That's really never been an issue. What's interesting is every once in a while, supplier will go around us to the client and ask to be excluded from the program. And we found that it's really one of 3 reasons why that's happening. The first one, and the majority of the time, frankly, is they have inadequate insurance. They're about to get caught. They don't want that to happen, so they're going to ask you for an exemption. That's up to you. The second one's interesting because the client's been hiding something from the client that they know we're going to find and tell the client. It could be a product liability lawsuit. It could be a bankruptcy. It could be a lien. It could be a variety of different things, but they clearly don't want the client to know about that. So they'll, again, come to you and ask for an exemption. Again, that's up to your decision whether you want to do that or not. And the third one, simply, gee, we're a small spend supplier. We don't do a lot of business with the company. We're not sure it makes sense to go through a screening program. The problem is every client has minimum requirements, meaning we have to collect the W-9, we have to check the OFAC list, whatever it might be. So what we do is we set up a smaller package for the small spend suppliers, less than $100, so there's no reason not to go through the screening program because, again, this provides you the ability to vet out your suppliers and be able to go and bid on any contract and say, we have pre-vetted our suppliers and there's no problem with our supply chain. So once this program is established, clients are able to reallocate their internal resources with basically outsourcing the compliance management tasks to GRMS. So we kind of take it over and manage it on behalf of clients. So again, just to kind of give you an idea of our process, it's very simple to implement. There's 3 steps we go through no matter how large the company is or where they are in the globe. First, we sign what's called a master services agreement. Basically, it says we don't share any information about who our clients are, but more importantly, who their suppliers are. Every client in our SaaS model is built on a platform where they're in their own silos. On the OMX, it'll be in the same environment you're in today, just, again, more robust information. The second step is choosing the screening packages. Oftentimes, we work with companies to create best practices. They'll ask, what are other companies doing about the California Transparency Act, or what are companies doing about Conflict Minerals Act, or whatever it might be. We can give you a lot of ideas of best practices. We just can't tell you which specific company is doing it, but we're working with our clients to create best practices. And then the third step is provide the electronic supplier contact file. Now, there's 1 of 2 ways this happens. Either one, if we're pulling the information from OMX, the way it works is through an API. Supplier comes on OMX platform, certain pieces of information are pushed to our platform. We do the screening of that particular supplier, and then we push the results back in the OMX platform so that it's transparent and basically it provides the information in, again, one portal. If it is on a SaaS model, most of our clients in the past have simply provided us a flat file of any non-personal expense for the past, let's say, 12 to 18 months. They start the program with those suppliers, then they continue to add suppliers on an ongoing basis. Now, we're cleaning the file, and we actually get the file on behalf of clients, which we oftentimes do. We have a whole research department that does data cleansing. And so once we get a flat file, the company can give us 100,000 suppliers out of their different ERP systems. We'll cleanse the data and we'll say, okay, you have X number, and it's usually about a third of the actual unique suppliers. In other words, instead of 100,000, you might have 30,000, let's say. So once we get the flat file, we do the rest, including removing any duplicates in certain categories, as well as enhancing any missing supplier information like their phone or fax or email, because we actually send out the invitations to all the suppliers, inviting them to participate. So it's an invitation for them to participate. Now, we did set up some supplier benefits to incentivize the suppliers to participate, including, as it turns out, the biggest one is this idea of a streamlined supplier experience with GRMS's help desk as a single point of contact. So rather than trying to figure out, well, who are they supposed to talk to within your company about an issue with a particular document or requirement, it's all centralized. They can contact our help desk to an 800 number or chat system or ticketing system or whatever it might be, that they can get their questions answered in one place that's familiar with the screening program. The second benefit is we provide the opportunity for the supplier to review the screen results for their company, allowing them to correct any derogatory information, because oftentimes they're surprised about how much information we get about their company. This gives them an opportunity to fix it. So, in the case, and I'll give you a simple example. We talked about DMB. Well, let's say you're collecting information about a supplier from DMB and other sources, and you say tell a supplier, we can't do business with you because we found some information out about your company. The question that then has to be asked is, what's the supplier supposed to do to fix that issue? And the problem with data feed companies is that there's nowhere to go at that point because they don't know where the information came from. So this provides your suppliers to contact our help desk, and we'll work with them to identify how they can try and get that resolved. And then the third benefit is obviously they're listed as approved supplier for your company, which is their ultimate goal. So the benefits to our clients is, number one, there's no cost whatsoever in setting up the program. It's totally a supplier-funded model. We base it on a high volume of suppliers. There's consistent measurable compliance standards in over 120 countries, which is extremely important. You want to be able to measure everything. And most importantly, everything's third-party verified versus being self-reported by the supplier. So when you get the results, it's all been verified and it's been adjudicated so that when you get the results, it's factual. So with that, does anyone have any questions for me? Because I was going to show you some examples of what can be included in different screening packages and international screening, et cetera. Again, just to get you thinking about it. So does anyone have any questions for me at this point?
I don't see any coming in, Gerard. I can see that everybody's active, but if anyone has anything, don't hesitate to ask. I'm
okay.
Keeping on top of it. So.
Okay. Well, then let me show you another page which provides some information about what can be included in a screening program. So I assume everyone can see the SAS supplier screening program. Again, this is a U.S. program. We talked about Supplier Shield. It's at a hidden page on our website at globalrms.com/supplier shield. And that provides you access to what can be included. So you might want to jot down that URL. You can kind of think about it with your management in terms of what are things that we want to address or solve. And basically our intent is to go to a client and say, what are you trying to solve? And we build a system to do that versus coming to you with a box saying, here's the results or here's what we provide you. We instead come at it from the other direction. So here's a couple of examples. Here's Supplier Shield and Supplier Shield Plus, both US-centric. These are the ones we talked about earlier. Here's some additional ones. And then what's most important on this page is we've explained what the search actually represents. So in the case of Global Watch List, we have over 1,200 data feeds with over 10 million records refreshed daily. So it's a big deal. This really helps, especially aerospace companies, because it's from a global perspective. And then it goes into an explanation of Supplier Shield Plus, the additional ones. You can say we want a deeper dive in terms of financials assessment. We're concerned about child labor, cyber we're concerned about, whatever it might be. It can mix and match then to meet your particular requirements. These are all compliance issues. We talked about REACH and RoHS, California Transparency, et cetera. And then we have health and safety requirements. The whole idea is that it's totally customizable. Now down here you see there's global, Canadian, because of Canadian law, there's certain requirements. So we built a package specifically for Canada. In case of global, again, you have Global Shield and Plus. It talks about, that we can do watch lists and criminality, adverse media, and then the tax certificates. So again, everything is listed out on this page with an explanation. What's the actual information? What's the benefit in doing that particular search? So with that said, this provides you the ability to, again, mix and match as you see fit on what you want included in your program. So that's what I wanted to cover today, and then I want to leave enough time for questions and answers. So at this point, Haley, if anyone has any questions or if we can open it up, that'd be terrific. I'd be glad to answer any questions anyone has.
Sure. So I have one that came in. So the question is, would we ask our supplier clients to subscribe to this? Is the supplier funded? They pay the fee, not us.
Correct. The supplier pays the fee, the $199. the supplier pays the fee, whether it be the $199 or whatever it might be, and they go through the screening program. There's absolutely no cost to your organization whatsoever. As long as we're really targeting companies with 1,000 or more suppliers. We can do it down to 500, but really at 1,000 or more. Another benefit that we might be able to build right in the system is, let's say you have specific questions you want to ask your suppliers. I want to know the SIC codes, or I want to know what other services you provide, or whatever it might be. We can actually customize a questionnaire on the front end to ask any questions when there's over 1,000 suppliers, so that it provides you the ability to collect additional information on your supplier base, again, in one database, one set of information that you can then use to manage your suppliers more effectively, and hopefully reduce eventually the number of suppliers, because that's what most companies are trying to do.
And so if a supplier enrolls under Lockheed, for example, and fills out the supplier screening program and goes through it with one client of theirs, do they pay again to work with another client? How does that work?
Okay, the answer is they have to go through every time, but they don't necessarily have to pay every time. So what that means is this. Every client has its own unique requirements. Every client has specific requirements. So Lockheed Martin would have different than Raytheon, that would have different than whomever. And the idea would be is that we customize the program, but more importantly, remember, we're doing it in real time. We're not using a report that they went through 8 months ago, and now you're using that old data again. We don't re-churn data. What we're doing is we're doing it in real time. So do they have to pay every time? The answer is not necessarily. We have what's called a GRMS National Account Program, which provides them the ability to pay a one-time flat fee at the beginning of the year for what is in essence an unlimited number of packages. But between you and me, the reality is, because it's so inexpensive, around $200, the suppliers just pay when they need to go through the program. It's just simply a non-issue for them.
Okay, great. Does anyone have any other questions right now? I'm recording the entire webinar. We'll make it available to everyone, and obviously I'll make my information and Gerard's contact details available. But now is the time if there's anything that you'd like to discuss. I'll wait another minute here, and if anyone has anything, that would be great. Gerard, do you have like a case study or anything, or?
We're in the process right now of setting up a white paper, as well as some other documents on the website. We have, the marketing people are working on that now. It'll be up probably in the next 30 days. So again, it primarily focuses on this idea that there's been an evolution of the supplier risk assessments and mitigation. So the idea would be it's evolved from where it was 10 years ago to now, because in today's environment, it's a very different environment, much more complex. And equally important, it's global. So how do you know that the supplier you're using in China or in Indonesia or in Ireland or wherever is really a real company? Or are they just working, out of a trunk someplace? So we're able to provide a lot of substantive information that provides a better business decision than to decide whether you want to do business with that particular company or not.
Sorry, and George, separate from this recording, can you also make the deck available? I'm going to send the link of the live webinar, but okay, great, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll provide the deck also. And remember, there's really two different groups of suppliers. You have your legacy suppliers, which are the suppliers you're currently doing business with. Those are the ones that would be screened first. And then on an ongoing basis, oftentimes we're asked, well, how do you actually implement a program like this? Well, we start with the legacy suppliers, inviting them to participate. And then we move from that point on to future suppliers. And the way that works is normally a client would include in their T's and C's or on their PO, in order to do business with us, you need to pass our screening program, go to the static website page. Statistically, 50% of your suppliers will go through in the first, or at least enroll in the first 30 days. The next 50% is depending on the company's stance. We do this for a lot of large corporations like CBRE, the largest facility management company in the world. They require every landscaper, every window cleaner, every cleaning crew, everybody that comes on property, they require that they go through the screening program and meet the requirements, or they do not do business with them. More and more companies are requiring that suppliers go through a screening program in order to do business with them, because the liability in today's environment is simply too big. So the way the process works is they go on the OMEX platform, they enroll, then we send out an email inviting them to participate. We direct them to a static website page, which then looks like a client's website. And it basically provides them some insight. This is why the screening program was established, why we did this, and here's the benefits to you as a supplier. And oh, by the way, then they start going through the process. And so it takes them maybe 10 minutes to fill out the information that we need. Then they're sent a welcome email, which then asks them what particular documents they need to provide, which they then upload in the system. They pay with a credit or debit card, and we do the screening. In 1 to 3 days, the results are then posted on the platform. So it's a very simple way for you to set up a global program without having to spend a lot of time, because we actually do all the data cleansing on behalf of clients, but we also provide the ability for you to customize the program so it's not as though, as I said before, a one-size-fits-all, but it's rather what's the issue you're trying to solve. So hopefully there's a benefit there, because I know in the past in Northrop we were always having trouble because different divisions wanted different documents. We can actually customize the program to be able to accomplish that goal.
You know, it kind of just struck me, a lot of the suppliers who have an OMX are a type of better early adopters. So I almost see this as a competitive advantage for them, like be proactive and do the supplier screening program and have that information made available to make themselves a more attractive potential partner or supplier on a program.
Yeah. Yeah, know thyself is the terminology we use, and yes, we've seen that in many cases. Yeah. We've been asked by many suppliers, will you provide us a GRMS approved logo that we can put on our website? We haven't gone to that point yet, but we're well aware that they want to use it as a marketing advantage.
That's great. Okay, cool. I don't see any other questions coming in. I'll wait another, 30 seconds, a minute here if anyone has anything they want to put in here. But like I said, this is all recorded. I will send a follow-up email to everyone that registered today and make sure that they get their hands on the link as soon as I have it up and live. And Gerard's also going to provide me with his deck and a link to this website here, so you can go and take a peek at it whenever you want, and also put our contact details and make that all available. So thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate everyone taking the time this afternoon to listen in. And that's it for me. Gerard?
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time. If you have any questions, either contact Haley or myself. We'll be glad to help out any way we can. Meantime, you have a great day.
Thank you.